Good morning, y'all. We're going to get started here shortly. Hopefully, you guys can see and hear me today. Hopefully we'll get. We're going to get moving. Oh, there we go. I am the CEO of LauraRutledge.com, the creator of the Rutledge Perspective podcast, and now I am the host of the Rutledge Perspective on KCOH TV, The Boost, and I am so excited. My background in human resources and also in business and consulting has given me the opportunity to share information with all of you. And what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there. Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday. I just want to say thank you, Lord, for favor this morning because there was some shenanigans happening on the roads here in Houston, and I am just so glad that I was covered and I'm here in one piece. So thank you for your patience in the show starting a little bit late today. That's all on me, just that be in Houston traffic. So, but we are here and we are in one piece, and I am grateful to be here with you today. So hopefully you can hear me, you can see me, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about lead with your heart, act with your head today. This is a real good show for entrepreneurs and for leaders alike. But entrepreneurs, I'm really looking at you today. So first, see this? Voting, right? All this stuff that's happening. Well, let me back up and let me just say, I am just, as we all are, I am so devastated and heartbroken for those families in Tennessee. Absolutely heartbroken. 3 more babies, right? At least the last I heard, 3 more babies gone unnecessarily. And my heart goes out to those families, the families of the children, whose friends were with those children. I mean, just the whole community, so let's keep lifting them up and do what we can to support. I'm sure there'll be things coming out with ways to support those families. And so if there's a way that you can support and uplift and help, let's try to do that, because I'm sure they are all just really, just trying to do it today. So yeah, my thoughts and prayers are with those folks in Tennessee, and hopefully at some point we will decide that we need not lose any more children before something can be done. But that's a conversation for another day and another show. But it's a conversation that will be had. Join me on Fireside, right? So voting, elections have consequences, as we have seen. It should not have to be this hard to get common sense gun control. Ain't nobody trying to take all your guns, people. Stop it. That's bad rhetoric. That's a lie. Nobody's trying to take all your guns. Well, let me rephrase that. There are people on the fringes that are probably trying to take all your guns. Most people just want something that's common sense. Common sense, right? Elections have consequences. All you 18-year-olds, look, we adults don't seem to be able to get this together. So we're going to need y'all to come and save us from ourselves, right? It's kind of those things where some of the institutions are so old and now so political and so complex, you almost have to blow them up and start all over because there's just so much emotion tied up in it. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today from an entrepreneur's perspective. There's so much emotion tied up in some of it that we can't get the stuff done that we need to get done because people's feelings get hurt. And it's not always about feelings. It's about getting the stuff done that needs to get done, right? And so we're going to need y'all. So 18-year-olds, go get registered. Go see who's running. Go get prepared to run, right? Go get some experience. Go get some exposure. Go get some life stuff, right? And use your creativity. Use your great ideas and run for something. Run for something, right? Because we're going to need you. We are going to need you. For those of us who can't seem to get our acts together and really get stuff done, it's too much about ego and power and fear. We need the reasonable people to come up, and it looks like it's going to be young folks. So y'all come on. We need you. We need you. Um, Stuff starts in the US again in April, as well as around the world. Not much going on here at the end of March, but global and local elections will start back up in April. Most of those in the U.S. are going to be special elections. We have presidential and parliamentary and referendum elections happening around the world. And remember, what happens to one of us happens to all of us, right? There's no such thing. We try to get on this whole nationalism kick, and there is a balance to things. We tend to swing pendulums, right? There should be a balance to things, um, and our reality is the world is so small. We are so interconnected now. That's a bell that can't be unrung, right? So what happens to one of us happens to all of us. So paying attention to all of that stuff is really important. So um, go get registered. Go find out who's running. Go figure out what the issues are. Get active locally. Follow When We All Vote. Follow Ballotpedia. Follow League of Women Voters. Hopefully, I'll have someone from the League of Women Voters on here soon as well, and some other folks with advocacy. I got some really great guests that I'm excited about getting on here. So I've got some reach outs that are happening right now to get some guests here in studio. Some guys who are killing it in the STEM space, and I love that. Black men doing amazing things in leadership around STEM, and HBCU grads. So I want to get them in here. The head of the Panhellenic Council here in Houston, to talk about all this madness that's going on in Florida, or that's trying to go on in Florida, and really educating people on what the Divine Nine, who we really are and what we really do. The woman that is connected to the Black Employees Network at Chevron, met her. So hoping to get her on here to talk about some things with leadership in corporate America, those kind of things. So really want to bring some really cool people here to you guys here in 2023. So stay tuned. All right. Also, I'll be talking here at the end about the Founders Intensive that is coming your way. That is for multi-seven-figure women-owned businesses. When you kind of reach that tipping point, generally it happens around 5 years, around 15 employees. Sometimes it can happen earlier, but it's really when you start butting up against that wall of being able to be accessible to everybody, there with everybody, know everybody's business versus running your business, right? It's where you really need to go back and make sure that your people strategy is connected to your business strategy. Why did you get into this business in the first place, right? And so that's a full day focused on your business strategy and your connected organizational strategy. And here in Houston with me. So it's a really cool thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I'll give you the website. Actually, I can give you the website now. LaurelRutledge.com is where you can find all things Laurel. Please know it is being refreshed. So you can go there and jump on the join my email list, and you can get all things, right? You can also send me a note, welcome@laurelrutledge.com, and I can get you on the email list. So join my email list, and you'll get announcements of all the stuff that's coming, the shows, the podcasts, all that kind of stuff. Got a couple of freebies coming out, got a 30-day, that's not free, but a 30-day Shift Your Perspective video series that's coming out. So lots of cool stuff. All right, entrepreneur focus. Let's talk today about leading with your head, leading with your heart, but acting with your head. Leading with your heart, but acting with your head. I had some conversations yesterday, and I'm doing a deep dive on some stuff myself, right, in my business, because we have to stay on top of things if we're entrepreneurs. Being on air with you, having these other platforms, I have to stay on top of my stuff too, right? So, or I can't guide if I'm not also doing the work. And so I'm doing some work myself, and one of the things that was mentioned in a call I was on yesterday was make sure that you are doing something that you enjoy. Make sure you're doing something that you enjoy. And that really hit me, because there are a lot of things that we like to do, right? And there are a lot of things that we are good at doing. We've talked about this. It's been a long time since I mentioned The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. The Big Leap, LEAP by Gay Hendricks, HENDRICKS. and this is the person who talks about, and everybody talks about the things, but they don't ever give him credit. Uh, Very few people give him credit. But when you hear people talking about zone of genius, zone of excellence, right? That came from Gay Hendricks. And his whole idea is, often we are operating in our zone of excellence. That's the stuff we do really, really well. But it's not necessarily the stuff that we enjoy doing or that gives us joy, right? Your zone of genius, that's where you are, as they say, in the zone, right? You are like operating on all cylinders. You are joyful. You are killing it, right? It gives you energy. It doesn't take away energy from you. And so you want to try to find those things that's in your zone of genius. So I was having this call I was on yesterday, and the person was talking about making sure as you're building your businesses that you're doing something that you enjoy. Do you really enjoy what you're doing? Now, granted, a lot of times we have to do things because we have to do them. You have to build people, right? You have to do performance reviews. There's stuff that you have to do always that's not necessarily in your zone of genius or stuff you love to do. That's just a fundamental part of being in business or running a business or running a corporation or organization. But the fundamental activities and actions should be something that you really, really enjoy doing. And so as I heard that, I thought, what I know that I know that I know in year six is that these services that are launching for you, I've been doing them for a while, just not in this manner, are the things that make me so joyful. And because they make me joyful, the delivery with excellence, I always deliver with excellence, but the level of delivery is like on steroids with my clients. Because I'm like in the zone. I tell them, I need y'all taking notes, because when I'm in the zone, I'm not necessarily going to hear everything that I'm saying that resonates with you. So if you stop me and say, hey, can you repeat that? There's a high likelihood that I'm going to say no, because I am literally in the zone with you. I am so focused on you and what you need and delivering what you need to hear, how it's connecting for you, putting all those things up, that I'm not necessarily focused on listening to myself. I'm focused on hearing you and delivering to you response to what you need. So, right, I'm not necessarily listening to me. And as I contemplated that and really sat with that, I thought, that's just additional confirmation of that whole idea that I tell my clients. I want you to lead with your heart, continue to lead with your heart. That's the power of women-owned businesses, leading with your heart. We are heart-driven, but act with your head. And not even a but, and act with your head. Lead with your heart and act with your head. And what do I mean by that? Because a lot of people think, well, it's got to be people, right? People first. No. Mission first, people always. Mission first, people always. And I believe that came from the military. Mission first, people always. And I heard that the first time from a boss that is still a very dear mentor of mine. And the idea is this. It is important to know what you're doing and why you are doing it. What you are doing and why you are doing it. What is the purpose that you started this business or that you're running this department? What are the overall objectives and goals? You have to know that. Because if you don't know that, you can go a whole bunch of different places and never wind up where you want to be. In addition, if you don't know that, how do you know who needs to be on your team? If you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, if you don't know where you're trying to go, how do you know what skills you need, what gaps you need to fill, right? What ideas, what innovation is needed? If you don't know what you are trying to do, trying to accomplish, how do you know who you need, right? If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? And so when I talk about leading with your heart, but acting with your head, what I mean is no matter whether you're building a business or career, it's all about strategy and people. And in order to have a good people strategy, you got to have a great business strategy. Because otherwise, you're going to keep hiring people and be disappointed. You're not going to be able to set clear expectations, and then they're going to be disappointed. You're going to end up having to help more people be successful somewhere else because you haven't been clear. And yet, If you take the time to really get clear on what it is you want and where you're going, then you can put the right people around you because you recognize the four questions. You ready? I want you to write these down. The four questions: who you are, where you are, what you want, and what it takes to get there. Who you are, where you are, what you want, and what it takes to get there. Those are the four questions. Just got to answer those four questions: who you are, where you are, what you want, and what it takes to get there. Because if you think about what I just said, business strategy, mission first, organization strategy, people always. If you know who you are and where you are, you can remind yourself of, why did I build this business in the first place? Why did I leave corporate? Why did I leave that good job with that good paycheck, right? Why did I start a business? Why did I start a side hustle? Why did I decide I was going to be on the career path to CEO, right? Who am I and where am I? Like, why am I doing this work? Whatever this work is for you. But in particular, entrepreneurs, why am I doing this? Okay. Get solid, right? We talked about that tree. For me, faith, family, friends, and health. Those are the things that ground me. And then I know what my skills are that I bring and how I want to deliver those to the world through this Founders Intensive for women-owned multi-seven-figure business owners and group community of navigation for new senior level executives in corporate, in particular Black women, right? That's why it's the chief navigation officer. In all this thing, chief navigation officer, trademark, right? Because it's about navigation, whether you're business or career, it's navigating those spaces. This Founders Intensive is about helping that new CEO, or that founder, right, navigate this new situation. I don't have time for everybody. I can't spend time with everybody and get my stuff done. I'm seeing changes that I really need to address, but I don't have time. I don't understand why I was doing the same thing, but people seem to be responding different. Navigating through the changes that are happening in and around and for and to your business so that you can continue on the mission that you put forth in the first place and the reason you built the business in the first place, right? And if you're in a career, how do you navigate this new world as a senior executive? Because it is not the same. Not the same as a senior manager. Not the same as just a new VP. I'm talking SVP, right? C-suite. That is a different world. And your ability to navigate that is critical for your success in that new world, right? And so if you think about leading with your heart and acting with your head, that means understanding who I am and where I am, and then understanding what I want so I can make a definitive plan and a strategy to make that happen, or at least to give myself a good chance to make it happen, right? Sometimes that's through people, sometimes that's through processes, sometimes that's through information, sometimes that's through technology. But if I'm really clear on the strategy, then I am open to how the organization achieves the strategy. Because if the strategy isn't accomplished, there is no organization, right? Unless you are some of the organizations that I've been in that are operating on pure inertia. They are still here simply out of inertia. That's it, right? And I always think how much more money they could be making, how much happier and more engaged and more innovative their people could be, right? How much more investment they could make in their innovation and in their processes if they actually started leading instead of just moving out of inertia. If they got rid of the toxicity, if they got rid of the ego, if they got rid of the old, patriarchy and control, if they really focused on a decent, good, clear business strategy aligned with the appropriate organizational strategy, they could be killing it in the marketplace. But instead, they're protecting ego. They're protecting ego. They are living out of fear. They want to protect what's been known for 150 years, or 200 years or 80 years or 30 years, whatever it is, right? Long-term organizations. They want to protect what they've always had. And in that protection, they are losing the ability to think clearly and to see clearly what's going on. Remember, I said, keep your eyes and ears open, because their ego's tied up in what happens. And if things are shifting, their ego is tied up in the shift, because change is hard and change is constant. So if you're not willing to embrace and understand and recognize change, you're going to be just where you are and just have to pray that the inertia is going to keep you moving. And there are organizations that have been around long enough that inertia is strong enough that it will probably carry them for at least a decade, right? But through that inertia, you are seeing lots of layoffs. You are seeing no bonuses. You are seeing, salary freezes. You are seeing hiring freezes. You're seeing all this stuff beyond economic challenges. Because see, they'll claim economic challenges. What that is poor operations, poor leadership, poor strategy in many cases, right? It's not all economic. Everything can be blamed on the economy, right? Some things we got to turn the mirror around and say, you know what, that was me. I wasn't paying attention. I was too caught up in what I wanted to keep my eyes and ears open to what was actually happening, to gather the data, to get the insight, to then make a decision and a change around what needed to happen, right? What is the fear that is holding us from staying connected to what's going on around us so that we can move forward with direction, with focus, with getting the right people around us in the right spaces in the right way to achieve the objectives that we've set out for ourselves, right? Lead with your heart and act with your head. Making tough decisions doesn't mean you don't feel anything, right? There's a difference between compassion and emotion. And unfortunately, most of us get that confused. Just like people always confuse consistency and sameness. Treating everybody the same is not the same as treating everybody consistently. It's like the difference between equality and equity, right? Consistency is everyone gets a trophy. The same as everybody gets a 2-inch trophy made out of gold with a little man on it and a star, right? That may not be reasonable. Consistency, right, is easily explained and it's easily continued. Consistency has a level of ability to have continuation, right? Consistency can lead to consistency, whereas sameness is very difficult to maintain, right? The more people you get, the more things change. What are you going to do? Buy 400 cars for people, right? When sales organizations used to give away cars, right, to the top people, what are you going to do? Everybody gets a car? Like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, right? Everybody gets a car, right? Is that what you're going to do? Does that make sense? No. But what does make sense is, we are going to reward people, and those rewards are going to be commensurate with the achievement. Not only is that consistent, but it also leaves you room to determine what is appropriate. Now, that appropriateness sometimes is in the eye of the beholder, and you got to decide what makes sense for you as an entrepreneur, right? But the rewarding, the fact that you are recognizing, right, achievement, that you are celebrating consistently, that's what builds trust. Consistency builds trust, right? When people are watching you, because someone's always watching, right? They will listen to what you say, but they will believe what you do. And if you continue to lead with your heart and act with your head, that is consistent, right? I hear you. I understand that this is a very difficult change that we are about to make. I understand that. And I know this is going to be difficult for many people. I'm going to explain to you the change that we're making. I'm going to give you some background on why we're making the change, and I'm going to give you the process for how the change is going to be made. You're not justifying, you're not cajoling, you're not asking for permission as a business owner in particular. You're not asking for permission. It's your business. You're making the decisions you need to make. Consistently, though, to build trust is, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to tell you what the decision is. I'm going to give you as much background as I believe is appropriate about the decision. And I'm going to give you a plan to have the decision that we're going to go forward with the decision, and my expectations around how we're all going to pull together to make this happen, right? That's consistency. And when you consistently do that, when you don't surprise people, then even if they don't like the decision, what they do know and what takes down kind of their blood pressure is, I know I'm not going to be surprised. I know something's not going to come out of the blue. Now, things happen. But if you are consistently not surprising people, then when a surprise happens, there's also a level of trust already there. Because that means you must have been surprised too. Because normal circumstances have shown them through your behavior that you give people a heads up, that you let them know what's going on, right? That you are transparent about what's going on in the business. And remember, transparency doesn't mean, telling everybody everything. You have to manage the appropriateness of communication for the levels at which you're communicating, right? And the smaller the business, there might be either broader or more narrow communication, just depends on the nature of your business. So if you're leading with your heart and acting with your head, you understand, I am telling people information that enables them to get their heads wrapped around it and to buy in and to understand how they are connected, and their work and their effort and their resources, their energy is connected to this thing. That's the compassion. I want people to be connected to the thing that I'm asking them to do, right? The head part is, I know where we're trying to go. This is the strategy that I have. This is the business that we're building. And based on all of the data that I've gathered, the information that I have, the connection to my clients, the connection to the industry, the connection to the here's the decision that's being made. And I feel like I've done the research that I need to do to make this decision. And I'm a strong enough leader that once we get going in this decision, I am paying attention because I've set up enough kind of checkpoints, right? Milestones, audits to understand the impact of the decision, whether it's working. And I can shuffle, shift, the P word, right? Pivot. I can do all those things if I need to because I've done the work ahead of time. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance, right? And when you are leading with your heart and acting with your head, you're not leaving people behind because you understand that it takes people to get things done. Leadership is about getting things done through, with, and for, and by other people. That's what leadership is. It's about everybody else. It's not about you. If you sit in your leadership position and only think about you, you're not leading. You're dictating. You're not delegating. You're abdicating. Right? And the whole idea of leading with your heart and acting with your head is maintaining compassion for your folks and a connection to them and their experience, while standing strong and in your power of your position as founder, as CEO, as SVP, as leader. Because remember, leadership is about behavior, not about position. So it's important that as you are thinking through where you're trying to be, what you're trying to be, how you're trying to be, that you understand that difference between emotion and compassion, the difference between leadership and ego, right? The difference between business strategy and organizational strategy, that you understand those differences and yet can connect them in a way that enables the team that you have built to support you to get where you want to be, right? If you're going to hire them, use them. If you're spending your resources, utilize your resources to the best of your ability. Resources being time, energy, and money, right? And time is not renewable. Time is not renewable. So when you are a founder and you're thinking about where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do, and things are just not working well, how long do you sit and stew? How much do you wait, right? I say all the time, because I had a coach say me early on, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. And even yesterday I was doing this thing and we had a little homework and they're like, go do video. Well, I'm on camera all the time now, right? But I even had to pause and I'm like, ooh, my hair's in twists. I got my workout stuff still on. I got, I'm not camera ready. And I thought, you know what? Stop. Because everything doesn't need to be a highlight reel. Compassion is saying to your people, you know what? I am not having the greatest day today. I'm here and I am in it. Good morning, Dr. Cynthia. But I may not be as communicative today. I may not be as responsive. Whatever your thing is, right? That's showing compassion, because then you're taking away people's concern about, oh my gosh, what did I do? I don't understand what's happening, because it's not consistent, right? It's not consistent with how you normally show up. And we all have bad days. So how do you manage through that inconsistency to let people know it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me. And that's okay, right? As long as you let people know. As long as you let people know. And that's part of being compassionate, because compassion is understanding where someone else is and what they could be feeling and how what you're doing could impact them. That's compassion. And if you're building a team, don't you want to lead that team with some level of compassion so that they can stay bought in, that they can stay connected to you, that they can stay aligned, right? Isn't that what you want from a team? You've invested money, you've invested time in hiring them and getting them on and training them, right? You've invested a lot of resources in building this team. Why would you invest and then just let it sit? That's not a smart business decision. That's not good stewardship, right? I say that because it's stewardship season at my church, right? That's not good stewardship. That is not good management of your resources. Time, energy, money, resources, right? So it's important, if we think about, really being compassionate, being concerned and connected to our folks. One of the best ways to do that, right, is to be clear on where you're taking them. Here's the path, right? Here's the path. Here's why I believe this to be the right path. And if it looks like something's going to happen and this is not the right path to be on, I will let you know and we will make adjustments, right? That's the kind of thing that real, true leaders and founders do. Sometimes we get, this is going to sound so counterintuitive, y'all, especially coming from a former HR person. Sometimes we get so caught up in the people that we can't do business. We get so caught up in making sure everybody's happy that we can't run the business. We get so caught up in making sure nobody's upset and nobody feels bad and nobody's feelings are hurt. We get so caught up in that mess that we can't run a business. Public service announcement. It is not your job to make everybody happy. Let me say that again. It is not your job to make everybody happy. You have enough work making your own self happy, right? If you choose to start a business, if you choose to move into a leadership role, right? If you choose to have that part of career where people are going to be looking for you, what is your job is to ensure that you are creating spaces that are safe, that are inclusive, that are productive, right? That are places where people can see and feel and understand the value that their experience brings. The reasons that you have them as part of your team. That is your job. That is your job. That's what compassion is. I want you to come here because you understand how your presence positively impacts the goals. You understand how your presence positively impacts your colleagues, your leaders. It positively impacts our innovation. You are here and you enjoy being here because the work you are doing gives you joy. Not that you love everything you do. That's just not realistic. But compassion is ensuring that the people that are with you understand why they are there and why you want them there, right? And in some cases, why it's time to help them be successful somewhere else. That's compassion. Compassion enables you to make really tough decisions in a way that is loving and respectful, right? Because sometimes it's just a fit issue. Sometimes it is a real disconnect. And in either way, you are not making judgment on somebody's character. You're making judgment on this is no longer a fit for the goals we are trying to achieve, both professionally and personally. And therefore, we are going to make the decision to separate, right? If you lead with compassion, you are able to have difficult conversations with people in a way that is productive. You don't shy away from those. You don't run away from those. Because when you do, that's not leading with your head. I mean, that's not acting with your head. That's leading with your heart only, right? I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want them to feel bad. That's about respect. That's about honesty. It is not unkind to be clear. Y'all hear me say that all the time. It's not unkind to be clear. And that clarity includes sometimes very difficult, hard conversations. And yet, if you focus on behavior, right, and outcomes and specific issues that have been observed, if you focus on those things, that is a compassionate way to have a conversation about poor performance. If the conversation starts with you did and you don't and you can't, that becomes accusatory. That becomes a character assassination opportunity. That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to adjust behavior. That's why they are theoretically called performance improvement plans. The idea of a performance improvement plan is to improve performance. I would have this argument all the time with leaders when I was in HR. We're not putting somebody on a PIP if your goal is to just get them out of here. Stop it. Because we're not going to lie. And we're not going to put something together that is impossible to achieve. If we truly have egregious behavior, we need to move against that egregious behavior in the appropriate way. But if we're truly talking about performance improvement, then we are going to do everything we can and give the person the opportunity to improve their performance, because it's on them to improve the performance, but we're not going to set them up to fail. That's compassionate leadership. We're going to do some shout outs here in a minute. That's compassionate leadership, right? Understanding that it's not about happiness. It's about value and valuing, right? Remember, we had this conversation several weeks ago. You're not asking for people to pay you what you're worth. No one can pay you what you're worth because you are priceless because you exist. What you're asking is for people to pay you the value of the experience and the outcomes that you bring and deliver. It's the experience and the expertise that people are paying for. It's the value of those things that they're paying for.
Dr. Human asks, can you please share how to lead into such conversations without the receiver feeling attacked?
Oh, that's a good question. And there's so many prongs to that. But here's what I would say at the foundation. If you have been honest and compassionate in the first place, it's easier. If you have been allowing behavior for years and years and years and years, and now you're ready to have the conversation, but you're mad, that's not the time to have that conversation. So the first thing is you got to mind you. The second thing is be very clear about what behavior needs to change and connect that behavior to goals and expected and desired outcomes. So for example, we need to have a conversation about this particular situation, because our expected outcomes were this, but here's what we got. And it was related to certain behaviors that we really can't continue to see, right? So notice nowhere in there did I say you, because I want to focus the person on the behaviors. I'm not slamming you personally. I am saying the behavior that was exhibited what I would say is please make sure you are starting from a place of compassion and calm before you have the conversation. Be clear on what it is that's the problem, and then focus on the problem, not the person. And then plan to say, what is it? What does the other thing look like? What does the desired behavior and outcomes, what does that look like? Because often you'll get in those conversations and people say, I don't understand. You need to be prepared with, here's what that looks like in this organization, right? For my business or for my department. Here's what desired behavior looks like. Here's how it presents itself, right? So be calm, be clear on what you're trying to get fixed, and then be ready with suggestions, support, examples, because until someone demonstrates to you that they absolutely won't do what you need them to do, you are giving somebody an opportunity through telling them there was a problem to correct the problem. Now, if you don't want to give people an opportunity to correct a problem, then you need to be ready to have a different conversation and be ready to live with the outcome of consistently just turning over your people. If you just have no patience, you're like, you know what, we can't do this. And so every time somebody makes a mistake, they're out of the door. You need to be ready for what that means in terms of your being able to find talent, because that news spreads fast, much less retain talent. Now, caveat, if it's egregious, somebody's stealing from you, somebody's hitting people, right? Physical abuse, that kind of stuff, they got to go, right? Like yesterday. I'm not talking about the real egregious things. You also in that situation can determine if it's a won't and you need to separate, or if it's a can't. If it's someone just can't do it, then what are the opportunities to put them in a different role that's much more aligned with their skills, right? But you can only do that if you enter into the conversation with compassion and with a focus on modifying behavior, not being mad. I hope that answered the question.
She said, what would be the timeline? It seems there's a waiting game then. I guess to wait before you.
Not necessarily, because it's kind of like, I think I said last week, you can't wait too long because people aren't going to connect the behavior with the conversation, right? But it's art, not science. If you see something and somebody just lost you $1 million, as soon as you know they lost $1 million, you need to address that, right? Immediately. If someone is doing something that is, harassing or just really outside of brand, as soon as you know you want to address, that's what's important. You want to address things as soon as you recognize that the problem exists. The challenge when I say be calm about it is as soon as you recognize it exists, you need to do a self-check first, right? Is this triage where I just need to run out and make sure, because we're in emergency mode, and then I'm going to mind kind of my tone, but we got to get on this like yesterday, right? And then I may have to come back and try to fix some things, but I need to focus on, we got to fix this. And then we'll go back and do the postmortem. Or, you know what? We got to fix this. Let me take a beat. Now let me schedule the meeting, right? This afternoon, tomorrow. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. But that is up to the leader on understanding how long it takes them to kind of regroup.
That just happened to me the other day. Somebody texted me something, and it was somebody that wanted to work with me. And it was really off what they text. And my text was about to be like an angry, drunk.
Right.
And so I was going to text back crazy. And I heard, just stop. This is not the time to the text. I took a deep breath. I went to the gym. I gave myself an hour.
Right.
They text me back and apologize. So it all works after a while. And then we were able to have this conversation. Yes. And I was able to see what was going on with them with compassion. And something really was going on with them. Right. That I could identify. And I was like, oh, that's what you kind of thought.
Oh, now I understand. Yeah. Right.
So I don't think it takes forever. I just think you were right when you said you need to take a minute.
Yeah,
if
take a beat.
Frustrated and mad, you can ruin everything.
Right. And a friend of mine, actually, I'm going to see her this afternoon. She always said, and I don't know if she did it or she heard it from someone else, but she used to always say, write hot, send cold. Right? Write that email, write that letter. When you're hot, get it all out. Save it in draft.
Yeah.
Take a beat. And then write the one you actually want to send, right? But that way you get it all out, right? You just don't send that one, right? You might send a passive aggressive one, depending on what it is, but you don't send the raw one, right? Write hot, send cold. Okay, let's do some shout outs. As I take a quick break here to get some water.
And she said it's compassion and expectation. Is that right?
Yes, you got to be compassionate, but you got to be clear on your expectations. Right? Clear on what you expect people to do. I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday who's in this group with me, who's getting ready to hire somebody. And I'm like, the key piece of advice I would give you from the get-go, be clear on expectations. Because it's good till it's not. Right? It's good till it's not. All right.
We got Italy in the building.
Oh, Italy.
We got Argentina. We got Japan. We've got Canada. We've got France. We've got Mexico. Brazil, Germany, Finland, Dublin. We have Also, we have Frankfurt, Helsinki.
Yay!
We have Los Angeles. We have Philadelphia. We have San Antonio. We have Atlanta. We have Raleigh. We have Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City, Washington, D.C., and Houston and
Missouri City. Yeah, we can't forget Mo City. Y'all, thank you so much. Because I know there are choices. There are choices, and I appreciate that you choose to spend time with me this morning. And I appreciate your patience at my delay this morning with lovely Houston traffic. And I just jumped right in. I didn't even introduce myself. For those of you who are new, I am Laurel Rutledge, and this is the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show on KCOH TV Radio, the Boost Global Network, here in Houston, Texas, at the corner of Alameda and Wichita. With our looking glass window here, it's kind of hard to see on my feed, but with our looking glass window here in Houston, Texas, on a day that's clearing up now, it's going to be a beautiful day, I think. It was kind of funky yesterday and today, but it's going to be beautiful. And any day on this side of the it is possible, and we are back, live stream, that it is truly possible to build incredible businesses, to create amazing teams, to impact the world. Because here's the thing, when women build businesses, women uplift a family. Teach a woman, you uplift a community. There's just something innate about that kind of caregiving and that kind of thing for most women, right? You can't speak too much in peanut butter, but spreading peanut butter. But there's this desire to truly make a big impact. And so I encourage all of you to repeat. I encourage all of you to really remind yourselves that it is important to truly not put your heart away. You don't have to put your heart away. You don't have to lead everything with masculine energy, so to speak, right? You don't have to put your heart away. You don't have to be cold and calculating. You don't have to be manipulative. That actually tends to be feminine energy, right? You don't have to be manipulative. You don't have to be shady. You don't have to gaslight people. You don't have to do those things. You can be a compassionate leader and still be strong and be clear and be definitive. That compassion enables you to ask a lot of questions and listen actively, right? To be curious. Compassion allows you curiosity. Compassion allows you to see everyone for who they are and where they are and what they need and what they can bring. It allows you to operate and act and hear full circle. That's the power of being a compassionate leader. When you combine that with action that is thoughtful, right? That is focused on a strategy, that is clearly connected between actions and outcomes. When you have that ability to use both sides of your brain, right? That's what creates an incredible leader. And if you are unable to do that, that's when you surround yourselves with people who can. Exceptional leaders hire for their gaps. They don't hire for their strengths. If you are an extremely detailed person, you need to hire people who are strategic, who think big picture, who see possibilities, right? If you are someone who is very strategic, you're thinking 3 year, 5 year, that's what you're thinking, right? You're thinking 5 and 10 year plans. You need somebody who's thinking about today. That's great. How do we do it today? Right? I work with a few people who are like, you know what? It's not no, it's how. I'm not saying no at all. I'm saying no, I get it. I understand where we're going. I'm bought in. But we got to talk about how we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes leaders who are very like, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing, here's what needs to happen. The minute somebody questions, they're like, what do you mean you're not bought in? People don't understand. We just need to get rid of people. If they can't get it, stop. Leaders, if you hear yourself saying that, I need you to stop. Because if they don't get it, that's on you, not on them. And I need you to get out of your emotion, out of your ego, and listen to what they said. Did they say we shouldn't do that? Did they say we can't do that? Did they say I'm not going to do that? Or did they say, okay, here's some things we need to think about? And by them saying, here's some things we need to think about, you heard we can't do it. Which is true? Which narrative is true? Did they really tell you no? Or did they just ask you some questions that you should be able to answer? Or at least be able to consider? Compassionate leaders listen full circle, right? If I've got all these big ideas and I've surrounded myself with people who fill my gaps, then when they're saying, okay, let me make sure I understand, and they're asking questions, and then they're saying, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? But what about this? You know your people well enough to know if you've just got a negative Nancy. And we all run into those, right? Somebody who's not going to be good with anything. You need to know that, and then you deal with that as a separate issue, right? But those folks who are usually getting stuff done, right, and can make it happen, if they're asking questions, and their questions are kind of like how or why questions, listen to that. Because sometimes in their question will show up a gap that you didn't think about in your strategy. Ooh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the fact that it's going to take 60 days to get that from our vendor, and I'm planning on 30. Didn't think about that. Didn't think about the fact that we don't have enough people. Should we get this first order that I'm planning on? We can get it to them in the time that we agree to, unless we hire some more people. And how long is it going to take us to do that? Right? Sometimes in those questions are actions that need to be taken for success.
Something, but you know that they're an action person.
Yes.
Those are the people that you hear. I want to say this quick example. That's why we have half a board in here instead of the whole board gone. Because when I told you I was going to remove this board, this whole thing out here, the couches in there, you're like, I'm like, what? And you're like, well, you know, you got to think about the camera angle, you got to think about how the chair's going to be, and this and that. And I said, all right, I hear you. And I was like, I ain't hear that. And I went into the other room, and I was watching, and I was looking. And I said, she is a strategist, so maybe she's right. Maybe I can get away with having half a board instead of taking all of it. Yeah. It all works because you have to see the source.
Yes.
Who's telling you what they're telling you?
Yes.
Because there are some people that I will probably cut off when I know that they just a lot of talk and I see no action behind it.
Right.
But if you got some receipts and if you've earned the right to be heard, then those are the people you do take time. I mean, it's all in compassion, but there are some people who will just right. Yeah. What about this? What about this? Because I'm running to those. And I run into those just as yourself says, well, did you think about this? And I'm like, nah, I really didn't think about it. I just like the way it's going to look.
Right. But that's a perfect example because the big ideas are good ideas. Mm-hmm. It's the execution where stuff gets off the rails, right? And so you want to be able to take the big idea and execute it in a way that leads to success. And that requires an ability and a desire to get input. And as you said, to know where you're getting that input from. Mm-hmm. Because as I said, when I told y'all guys the story of the crow, not everybody who dumps on you, challenges you, tells you you need to rethink something is your enemy. And not everybody who picks you up, tells you yes, says you're great, is your friend. Mm-hmm. There's some people who will yes you right off the cliff. You got this. Oh, yes, that is absolutely. And watch you go down and say, oh, I hate that. Right? There are people who are living for your downfall. Let them manage that. You keep doing you. You be discerning about who you listen to. And you stay focused on what your spirit and your purpose is and your why. And then do the best you can to continue to lead with your heart and act with your head. Because when you act with your head, you can see all that stuff. You're not caught up in emotion. That's not to say we're not emotional people, y'all. Don't get me wrong. Emotion sometimes just gets the best of us because we're all human. We're all fallible. Just do your best to stay in compassion. And if you get into emotion, make that as short-lived as possible. Remove yourself from the situation, get it together, and then come back. All right. Thank you, guys.
Dr. Cheryl Ivory says, well, now.
Hey, Dr. Ivory.
Quintessa said facts.
I'm just saying, y'all, thank you so much, Quintessa. I had a great time. For those of you who are on my feed, I apologize. I have no idea what's going on. It keeps going in and out today. So hopefully you got most of it. At least the audio, even if the video was going out. So hopefully you got most of it. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a great Tuesday. It is. You know what? We just roll with the flow, y'all. That's what live is. You just never know what you're going to get. I appreciate each of you being here. I appreciate you spending time with me today. Remember, laurelrutledge.com. You can sign up for my email list. You'll get all the things that are going on. If you are a woman business owner, multi-seven figure, you've been in business about 5 years, got about 15 people, you're reaching that point where you're like, my people aren't working, I'm not working, something's not working, and you are ready to invest in figuring that out, get on my email list or send me an email at welcome@laurelrutledge.com and let's get on a call and figure out how we can do a Founders Day intensive for you. But you got to be ready. Got to be ready to work. You got to be ready to invest because it is not a freebie. It is an investment in getting you where you want to be. And the question is, how much